Namaste and welcome to this exciting episode of Sattology, debunking mythology. Sat means truth, and logos means a study of science. Sattology means a science of truth, study of truth. Opposite of that is mythology. Myth means a fake lie or imagination. And logos means a study or science. Mythology means a science of fake lie imagination or study of fake lie imagination. It's a big irony. Even Christians don't call their history as mythology. They don't call it as mythology. Neither Judaistic guys call their history as mythology. And of course, Islam also doesn't call it. But they all call Hinduism as mythology, which is a very sad story. First of all, mythology is a word created using two words. And I told you the meaning. So we now claim that our history, Ramayana, Mahabharata, anything written in Veda, and anything following Veda, anything built on Smriti, all the books written to explain them, all of them are Sattology. And because they are coming from a right source. And Sanatana Dharma or Vedas is the most documented history and philosophy on the planet. The amount of books written on Veda, just the size of Veda. And even the Mahabharata is so big. Generally, a scholar needs 10 years to finish one time reading, generally. It's way more than anything else. I think all the PhD programs also fail. So today we have a very, very special guest, and she has been our show many times. And the last show you loved it so much is ethics. And so one more show is coming off her online. So without delay, let us welcome Deepali Patwadkar.
Namaste, Aditya ji. It's great to be back on the Sattology channel.
Namaste. We are also very honored to have you. So, Deepali ji, so when we talk about infinite Sanatana Dharma, what do you mean by that?
This concept actually comes from game theory. And this was proposed by James Carse. And he had proposed this in quite recently, 1986, he had proposed it. So what he speaks about is that there are two types of games. And one type of game is a finite game, and the other type of game is infinite game. So let's delve into it, see what these games literally are. So finite game is played for a finite time, and it has a beginning, it has a middle, and it has an end. It is played on a defined space. There is a playground. It has its own limits. It has its boundary. And all the players who are playing the finite game, they are known players. And the rules of the game are predefined. The rules don't change. The rules don't change at all. And the goal of the game is to win. So there are winners and losers. It's a black and white picture for a finite game. There are winners and losers, and the goal is to win. What may, I want to win. That is the goal for a finite game. But when we look at an infinite game, the time duration for an infinite game is not fixed. It goes on and on. It doesn't have a beginning. It doesn't have an end. Everything is just the middle. And there is no specified playground. There are no boundaries. There are horizons, but no boundaries. And players, they keep changing. Like when a player gets tired, he is replaced. There is somebody else who will be playing instead of him. But the game goes on. And the goal of an infinite game is that the play must go on. Like the show must go on. The play must go on. And sometimes one loses, sometimes one wins. There is no clear-cut definition of a win or a lose, right? And there is no such thing like winners and losers. But it is a game which will just go on and on, and that's what the goal of an infinite game is. And today, what I'm going to talk about is Hinduism is a infinite game. Being Hindu is being in a infinite game. So that's what I want to talk about today.
That's a very good actually analogy you have put out, because most of the finite games have a definitive winner and losers, and which is good for promoting the game, because the challenge always makes it interesting. So, but even the Hinduism, when it is infinite, or Sanatana Dharma, when it is infinite, it is also challenging, also, isn't it? The journey is challenging.
Yes.
Process is easy, but it's not. It's difficult. The process is not easy. It's difficult in a way.
Yeah, because in a finite game, you really know what your goal is. And as you proceed in the game, the finish line starts to come near. That is what happens in a finite game. Infinite game, like, the horizon is your limit. And as you move ahead, the horizon also goes ahead. So playing an infinite game is much difficult. You have to be motivated. You have to have your own inspirations to play that game. I'll take example of a finite game and an infinite game. So let's take, for example, 100-meter race. So this 100-meter race, it has a beginning. Like, somebody goes 1, 2, 3, go, and the race will start. So it has a beginning. And the moment the last player reaches the finite line, that is the end of the game. So it's a very predefined time, and it has a start, a middle, and an end, and it has a limited playground. There is this track on which this 100-meter race is going to, the players are going to run over there. So it's a very well-defined playground, and all the players are known. There are generally 10 players, and each one is known. Their names are known, from which country they are coming. It's known. All that information is there beforehand. Before running the race, you know what are the rules. Before running the race, you know that you're not allowed to change your track. You have to stay in your track till the end. And there is a very definite rule about who wins. The winner is the one who reaches first. So that's very clear. And let's take an example of a infinite race. So this is a made up example. Let's say there is a relay marathon. It's a marathon which is very long. It's not 42 kilometers. Let's say it's like much more than that. And this is a marathon which we don't know, which we are running, and we don't know when we started it. You can say, this race is like human race. So we are in the middle of it. We don't know when it started. We don't know when this race is going to end. But we know that when we get tired, we are just going to hand the baton to the next generation, to the next player. So the players keep on changing. But the race is a very long race. And what is the goal? The goal of this race is the human race should go on. Right? There is no winners, there is no losers. And again, horizon is the boundary. As we go ahead, as the human race goes ahead, we keep on seeing new, new visions, new goals for ourselves in every area. And that is what, motivates so many scientists and players and artists to keep running that race. And when they are running this race, the goal is not winning, because there can be so many winners. There is so much position at the top. So the competition is not with others, but the competition is more or less with yourself. What is it that you can do the best? How you can do it? So one would keep on working on self. In a finite race, if my opponent falls down, I'm going to feel happy. Okay, now I can go farther than him, faster than him. But in an infinite race, when somebody else falls down, I can always wait and help him. Right? So it's not a severe competition. Another thing is, in an infinite race, I will always learn from my opponents. I will try to learn, how come he is so effective? How come he is so productive? How come he can, run without getting tired? So I will learn all of this from other players. And I will also encourage other players to go farther. And this race, I can always wait for a while. I can go slow for a while. I can run fast for a while. I can have some sprints, and then I can still wait and look at all the scenes, the lovely scenery, and then continue. So an infinite game is played in a playful way. That's the very big difference between these two. a finite game is a severe game. It's a game which is played fiercely. That I want to win it under any cost. That is what a player who is playing a finite game will have in his mind. So he will do everything he can to win the race. But for an infinite race, it's being playful. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. There are others who are winning, there are others who are losing as well, and you just want to enjoy the journey. That's being in an infinite race.
So you put a very nice analogy on the game theory. Now, in the case of a finite game, which is the world is playing today, which you're explaining, which the world, most of the world is focusing on, there is a lot of depression, there is a lot of drawbacks. So what is the drawbacks which you see from your side if you put the game theory to the finite game on the current opposition to Sanatana Dharma?
So when we speak about a finite game, everyone is in there to win, and only one person can win. That's the bad part about a finite game, and it creates so much stress. You cannot live in that stress for a long time. A short game, a short sprint, 100-meter race, you play it as a finite game, that is fine. At the end of the game, you go home. That's the end of it. But if you are continuously playing only a finite game, then it's a difficult thing, because it can make you a very bitter person. It can make you a very selfish person. It can give you lots of stress, and all that you would be thinking about is yourself and how to win. So that those are the cons of a finite game. So you cannot play a finite game for a long time. For a short duration, for short sprints, finite game is good. You can give yourselves some small goals, and you try and achieve those goals. That's possible, but one cannot play a finite game all your life. You can't do that. It will take a toll on your health. It will take a toll on your relationships, your family life, even your happiness. So a finite game has to be played only for a finite time, short duration. And when we are looking at infinite game, as I said earlier, it is being playful. You take in your stride winning and losing, so that shouldn't create stress for you. So that's one thing about infinite game. And the other thing about infinite game is that you you might get lethargic. That's the con of infinite game. If you know you are going to be here all the while, you might you might not you might not put in as much efforts that are required into the game as needed. So those are the pros and cons of both the types of games.
So there is a very famous verse called Utsahat Nishchaya Dharya Tat Tat Karma Pravartanat Sangatyaga Shatovritti Shadvir Bhaktir Vinashiti. So we Utsahat Nishchaya Dharya, we need enthusiasm, we need determination, and we need dharya, patience. Tat Tat Karma Pravartanat, and you have to constantly engage in our activities. Sangatyaga, you have to remove all bad association. And also we have to increase the association Shatovritti, people with a purified mind, clean mind. Now, I believe that these are the qualities for a successful player in a infinite game, yeah.
Infinite game, yeah.
Infinite game, because infinite game is long. Whereas in the finite game, you have to keep the opposite of that. So how good are these qualities for the finite game? If you're keeping these qualities, then can anyone win in a finite game?
Absolutely. All these qualities will also be useful for a finite game. But one thing that finite game needs is that edge, being very competitive. The Subhashita that you told right now, it doesn't speak about being competitive. Finite game needs you to be competitive. So that's the difference.
Somehow in the minds of our society, everything has been made around competition. That someone else has to excel over the other.
Yeah.
And the person who is succeeding has made up their mind in a certain way. They may succeed in the exam, but the exam of life, which continues, which is like an infinite thing, is different. The competition is different. People may score good marks in the schools and colleges, but they may be homeless on the streets of America in the future, because they played by one set of rules. They defeated somebody, but they failed in some other aspect. How do you see that?
Yeah, that gives that is like, winning in the short term, but then you haven't thought about long term. Like, for example, if there is let's take a scenario from a business. So in a business, if you have to win a tender, you want to win a project, so that is a short term game, it is a finite game, and whoever are the players in it, they will play their level best to win that, to win a project. So they will give their quotations and they will do everything that needs to be done to win it. But if you think about business, business is a infinite game. Say, for example, Ford or Tata. So what they are playing is an infinite game. For them, it doesn't matter whether they win a project or lose a project, whether they win a tender or they lose it. For them, what is important is that the business must run on. The business must go on. And the way they will be thinking is they will be thinking quite a long term ahead. So that is something which makes people think uh, they don't take short-term decisions uh, which are going to, how do you put it, which will be good for the short term but bad for the long term. So they won't do things like, which will be bad for the company 10 years down the line. But while winning a tender or for winning a project, people might do like, things here and there, so that they just win that project. For that time, winning the project, that is what is important. So that's how these things will be different. In fact, I even think about this, uh, in democracy. What we have is we have governments which run for like, 4 years or 5 years. In US, it is 4 years. India is just 5 years. I think of that as a finite game, because whoever is in the government, they have a very finite time to do something, and they will, like, they want to win even the next elections. So the goal is to win the next elections, and they will do everything just so that they win the next election. So they will do things which the people want, but the people might not be needing those. Or they might do things which the people want, but they might not be good for the environment. They might not be good for the people also in the long run. After 10 years, it is going to hit them hard. But still, that is what a finite game is. And if you compare it to an infinite game, I would say, we should look at a dynasty that is ruling. Not that I am promoting autocracy over democracy, but I'm just giving this as an example. So, say, for example, there is this Raghukul. So, the Raghukul dynasty, the dynasty of Ram. So, now when a king is ruling, his goal is that, he is going to rule for a long time. He is not seeing an end date the way today's government sees an end date, like, 4 years down the line or 2 years down the line. They see the end date. But when it is a dynasty, they don't see an end date. And that is why they have to do things which are good even 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, 100 years down the line. And the king has to ensure that, when his children or grandchildren are going to rule, they shouldn't be facing problems because of the decisions that he is taking. So this is another example of a finite game and an infinite game in terms of politics and in terms of governance.
Yeah, when you talk about politics, then every 2 years they have to start preparing for the next 4 years. So even if a good president is there or prime minister is there, where people want him to rule a little longer, but again they have to. So elections are an unnecessary expenditure on a democracy. The
Very,
Indian
very.
the Indian concept of Loktantra is not the direct translation of democracy, because democracy is called demon crazy in many languages. The word demon and demo come from the same source. You know. But Indian concept is Lokatantra, which is far different than that. In Lokatantra, there is a different process, and we'll have a separate show on that. But it's a different process, Loktantra. So coming to this same point of game theory, now, according to you, the finite game also has infinite challenges because the difficulty level is much higher, and it apparently looks easy, but there is a lot more difficulty also. So what are the challenges in a finite game?
Challenges in the finite game are the opponents. if if there are no opponents, if there is no other side to it, the game would be very easy.
No, well,
So
opponents you said in a finite game, but infinite game, what are the opponents? Because
in
everybody's
finite games.
in
See, this is a very big difference between finite game and infinite game. In the finite game, the opponents are the problem is with other people. Having other people, having opponents, having somebody to compete with, they are the problem. But in an infinite game, I have to make myself better than yesterday. So my problems are making myself better. So in an infinite game, the problems lie within me and they are in my control to improve. So, and that is actually the very difficult thing to do. Fighting with somebody else is much easier. Fighting with an opponent whom you can see and whom you can see outside of you, it's much more easier. But fighting with your own qualities, fighting with probably your own laziness, fighting with your own all bad qualities, it is so difficult. Just like, for example, giving up smoking, that is such a difficult thing to do. And that is why an infinite game is more difficult. For playing an infinite game, you have to be very disciplined. Even if you are not showing speed, you should always keep on moving, and you should keep on moving in the right direction. And that is till the end. So you just have to go on and on. That's why the challenges in an infinite game, they are much higher.
Now, if you look at the game of chess, and if you look at the game of golf is very easy to look from outside, very easy.
Yes.
But believe me, when people go on the field and try to hit the ball, just hitting is difficult, but the ball is right in front of you. Nobody's throwing ball at you, nobody's doing any spin, nobody's doing any bouncer. Ball is sitting right in front of you. But it's very difficult to hit the ball at the right place. And somebody may hit it, but still may hit in the wrong place. So it's a easy looking game, but its difficulty is very high.
Yeah. This is a wonderful example of a finite and an infinite game. I'll tell you one more example of finite and infinite way. If we look at the Gregorian calendar, this calendar is a finite calendar. So in this calendar, or you can say the Bible calendar, it has a beginning. The beginning is the year 3700 BCE something. So that is the beginning when God created the world. And then it also has an end. And that end is called as the last day of judgment. So that calendar, you can see, has a beginning and an end. It's almost like, time having a beginning and an end. And that is why this calendar is a finite calendar. But if you look at the Hindu calendar, this Hindu calendar, it is a cyclic calendar. Cyclic as in a sense, it has this yuga concept. Just as there is the cycle of day and night, a day follows night and night follows day. Or there is the cycle of seasons. So after spring and summer and autumn and winter, there is again spring, summer, autumn, winter. Similarly, there is a cycle of yuga. So this cycle of yuga, it goes on, and there is a facility to measure time up to 8.7 billion years in this calendar. And actually, even more than that, it can measure more than 300 trillion years. That is the capacity of this calendar. So this calendar doesn't have, like, a beginning or an end. It's an infinite calendar. So the Hindu way of looking at time is also an it has this infinite thing woven into it. And this way of thinking is seen in so many other Hindu concepts. Like, for example, even if you look at the numbers, so Hindus, when they started counting, they were able to count numbers from 0 to 10 raised to 64. So that's a huge number. It is only in these days that we are looking at numbers like 10 raised to 100 and so on in the modern times. But we see that during the Ramayana times or even the Vedic times, the highest number that has been given in the Hindu way of counting is 10 raised to 64. Or even if we look at the way of counting the number of the army, even that counting, it goes into akshauhini, and that is also a very huge numbers. So we see this concept of infinite thinking in every Hindu way. Even if you take the example of, say, medicine. So in the modern way, the modern medicine, it gives a standard medicine to any patient who comes. There will be a standard medicine. You are having a headache, you take this. You are having a fever, you take this. So it's a standard medicine. There is a standard dose. But if you look at Ayurveda, which is the Hindu medicine system, and in this system, what it is considered that Vyakti Titya Prakriti. So every person is different. That is what this system thinks. And it will give personalized medicine, it will give personalized dose for that person. So what you see even in this thinking is that the number of patients and the number of diseases, or all of that becomes infinite in this case.
Yes. Another example comes to my mind, since we are talking on this area. In Sanatana Dharma, the challenges are within.
Yeah.
So when, just like in golf is a very good comparison to that.
Perfect.
Because it's just between the ball and the iron. Only thing you have in the middle is the mind, nothing else. And Bhagavad Gita says, when the mind is controlled, it is the best friend. And when the mind is not controlled, it is the best enemy. We all keep looking for enemy outside. That is a very bodily concept, which is a finite game. Body is finite. Body is going to end after 70 years, 80 years, and nowadays with the lifestyle, it can be just 40 years also. But the finite game is dependent on the body, whereas the infinite game is dependent on the soul, which is two different aspects, Atma. So that is also a major difference out there, because in Sanatana Dharma, it is you struggling against your own mind, whereas in other people, they are struggling against their own body. Don't you see as a major difference right there?
Absolutely. And look at the name. The name itself is Sanatana Dharma, eternal Dharma. So it doesn't have a beginning, it doesn't have an end, it is a infinite Dharma. And the focus is on improving self. And that is why you will see that the Hindu Dharma, it has so many people who have come to improve the Dharma. They have come up with so many different ways of attaining self-realization. They have come up with yoga. They have come up with different types, even in yoga, the different types of meditations. And then there is the karma yoga, there is also the jnana yoga, bhakti yoga, so many ways that have been told to attain self-knowledge. So this comes only in a infinite way of thinking, that what we have to do is we have to only improve ourselves. So this thinking comes only in an infinite game. It will not come in a finite game, because a finite game, the problem is elsewhere. Problem is outside of the religion. And that is people try to improve that instead of self. So this is a very important difference between a finite religion and an infinite dharma.
Very good point you said. And also, the bodily consciousness, with the body is sure to come to an end, with the bodily consciousness also comes another challenges like racism, like putting
Yeah.
others people down, and and imaginary thinking that we are good looking people than others because God has made us special. That's a major ego. God has made us special, and therefore we are better looking than others. And another drawback is just like thinking that my red color shirt is better than anybody else's red color shirt, but the color is the same. It's a thing. It's the same thing. But don't you think it makes you less intelligent?
It actually does, put limits on your thinking, because when you are thinking only of body, you will start looking at all the attributes of the body, and your thinking will also come to the level of the body. So in the end, what happens is it is the thinking which comes to this particular birth. So from the birth to the death. So in this one life, that is the time which Abrahamic person would have on the earth. So this is a finite time, and in this finite time, he has to do everything that he can do to, get a seat in the heaven. But if you look at the Hindu way of thinking, the Hindu way of thinking is that it people keep coming to the earth so many times. So it is said that in the Hinduism that every person has been in 8.4 million species. He has taken birth on this earth in 8.4 million species, and that too in every species so many millions and thousands of times. And this particular life is also not the last one. Every person will again come on the earth, and so the earth is the playground. The playground is not going to change, and we have to take care of the earth. We are not here on rent that we'll live here for a short duration and leave to some eternal place. That is not the case. We have to come again and again on the same earth, and that is why it is necessary that we keep the earth healthy. We don't pollute the earth, we don't pollute the water, we don't pollute the air. So this is the thinking which comes with infinitism. So even if you look at the concept of wedding in Hinduism, that concept is also of I am going to get the same husband for the next 7 births. That's the thinking. So I am not married to this particular person just for this one life, but I will be getting married to the same person, the same soul, over and over again. So this is the type of thinking which we see in infinite game.
The another aspect also comes in education, level of education. So the education based on the finite existence of a bodily existence is also relative, because if somebody is born in Argentina, for example, they will be just thinking they're Argentinians, and they have to be given an infinite education a little bit to think that all humans are alike. Everyone has similar blood group levels, similar in the sense that they can have AB, whatever the blood groups are there. But still, the blood group of one human can be given to another human across the planet. That is unity. But they have to be educated in the infinite concept also. So Sanatan concept is applicable to even those who believe they are not Sanatan. They're still the body. So it's a oxymoronic thing. So when they say we have finite existence, but it is untruthful nature, I think we are countering the game theory also, because here when you're talking about the human being, every human being has infinite existence because of the Atma.
Yeah.
And if they think that I am the shirt, that's what they're saying, I am the shirt. That means if the shirt is gone, everything is gone. It creates hopelessness, and it creates it's an attack on the soul, attack on the Atma. That now they will have hopelessness, they will have that's why most of the people commit suicide when it's very difficult, or get into drugs, because they don't see hope. They are told that there is only one life, as if I were to tell somebody, you will have only one chance to wear a red shirt, it's over after that. It's illogical talk. Just red shirt once, black shirt once. So we all want to change our shirts every day. Tomorrow I will wear a red shirt, today I'll wear a blue shirt, and I'll make a plan to wear a silver shirt one day. But in a finite, when you talk about the finite systems that we have, there's only one chance. There's no other chance. So it's a very foolish idea, because the time is cyclical, time is infinite, goes on and on and on. So the cycle of even the time being linear has been rejected, even by you in one of the earlier shows. So isn't that a very unintelligent choice?
In fact, when one realizes that this is an infinite game, and that this is just one part, this is the middle that I'm seeing right now, and after death is not the end, basically, and after the after death there will be another birth, and I'll be coming back again, and it has been reassured by Krishna in Gita, that if you are studying something in this life, and if you haven't completed your studies, then in your next birth you can continue from where you had stopped. So whether it is your spiritual studies, or whether it is some art that you are learning, this is a kind of a evolution. If we look at it from the scientific perspective, this is kind of a evolution, and there is so much time to do everything. So people don't become afraid of death. And actually, this is one quality of a Hindu which Al-Baruni had talked about. So when Al-Baruni came to India in 11th century, he said that the Hindus, they don't speak a lie, and the second thing is that they're not afraid of death. So this is a quality of Hindu which probably comes from this infinite thinking, that I'm going to be here again. So, playing it very coolly, taking everything in your stride.
Don't you think that the imposition of finite theorists, or we are analyzing Sanatana Dharma from the point of game theory, they have introduced corruption and lying and deceit in the Indian society, in the Sanatana Dharma society?
Yeah. Because
according to Al-Baruni.
Yeah, because if you know that you are going to come here again and again, you will, and according to the Siddhanta of karma, the theory of karma, whatever you have done in this life, you have to you will get the rewards, and you will also get the punishment based on how you have behaved, what kind of things you have done. So if not now, in your next birth, you're going to see those consequences. And that is why whoever believes in this, whoever agrees with this infinite time, infinite cycles of birth and death, and the karma siddhanta, that person will think 100 times before he does, he is going to take a bribe, or he is going to speak a lie, or he is going to be a corrupt person. So this thinking of infinitism will make a person a good person. He has to be good. There is no other option. So when we speak about Ramarajya is basically this, that everybody is following one's own dharma. Everybody is taking one's own responsibilities seriously and performing his or her duties. That is Ramarajya. So
if you look at the modern theorists, they consider this as a weakness. Machiavellian has become the new art of politics, which is very sad, which is the Kanik's instructions Yudhishthir. Now, if you look at every single character and episode in Mahabharata, is gray, is not black and white. There are shades of good and bad in everybody. But predominantly good becomes more dharmic. Predominantly bad means adharmic. But the strength of the good people is much higher than the bad people. Now that is maintained. So in the infinite game, the strength of the individual has to be much higher than the strength of the finite individual, because the person is thinking only on the body. So don't you think the misconception of people is wrong, that goodness is bad? That's what people are talking about. Goodness is bad. And when you're dealing with then when you're dealing with the nation states now, this concept of in terms of game theory, which you are speaking with, great discussion actually. The today apparently the bad people seem to be winning and they have more success. So naturally people think that the finite people, the finite, the everything is finite, those theorists are winning, but in actuality they are losing. But apparently looks they're winning. Don't you think there is some change needs to be done in the minds of the people who follow Sanatana Dharma? Because Sanatana Dharma is built on strength, not on weakness, where each individual is strong. Where in the finite theory, they have to come in groups because they cannot defeat one at a time. They have to come in groups. Don't you think that some elements we have to mix in Sanatana Dharma or change the mindset?
Yeah. The infinite game, though it is infinite, it can have so many finite games as well. So they might, that is one thing. Second thing is the people who play infinite game, as I said, they're playful. Whereas those playing a finite game are very fierce. So when these two games are mixed, it's a problem. If all the players are playing an infinite game, things are well, things are good. If all the players are playing a finite game, things are good. But if these two things are mixed together and we have people playing an infinite game and then there are others who are trying to play finite game with them, then problems arise. And the problem is because one is being very lay back and the other one is playing to just win, so that creates an imbalance. And in this case, those who are playing an infinite game, they must play short term finite games to ensure that goodness wins.
So again, now we are getting into the shades of gray now, because here when we talk about in this concept, now Sanatana Dharma is very much dependent on karma, which is infinite, but it can be changed. So the even if you look at the Mahabharata war, all the short battles had to be won.
Yeah.
All the short battles had to be burned, so with the one, otherwise the big war cannot be won. So now, so when we work on the in the game theory concept, the strength and the tactical aspect has to be retained, like you said correctly. In this infinite war, infinite game, we need to have small finite games also, because the opposition gets stronger, takes advantage of your goodness. So there the niti also comes into play, where you have to defeat the opposition, whatever comes in the manner in which it has come, and then overcome it. Like for example, if somebody is throwing a weapon, you have to cut that weapon with the same power or more, otherwise it's going to hurt you. Now in the infinite game, the biggest strength is the mind. And even in any kind of big battle or war, mind is the biggest strength, and second is morality. Long-term victory is only of that army which has the morality. We have seen Americans retreating from Afghanistan. We've seen Americans retreating from Vietnam, much smaller military forces. Americans use every single thing in their arsenal to own those territories, every single thing. Still, they have to leave. We are seeing also in the case of in the Yemen war today, we're talking finite aspect, where Saudis have to retreat because morality is missing right there. It can be any situation. So don't you think it plays a major part? Mind and morality plays a major part in Sanatana Dharma, and that is a strength.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Because when we are playing this infinite game, it is a game with yourself. You're just competing with yourself. You're trying to become a better you every day. And that is why you have to have ethics, you have to have morality, and you have to have your own character. Unless you do all of it, there is no winning. That is one thing. And the second thing which I would really like to say is the playing an infinite game is 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 fun, and this is the fun which the Hindu can share with everyone else. And everyone must learn what this infinite Hindu way of thinking is, and absorb that thinking, because it makes you a better person, it makes you a cooler person, it makes you less selfish, it makes you living this life coolly. So to have all of these things, you must have this understanding of a infinite game. And this is something that Hinduism can give to everybody else. And I would really say that everyone should understand this and get into the infinite thing rather than the finite pond. It should be in the ocean.
Thank you. And I think one last comment I'll have, it also creates a better unity also. And there's a
Yes.
common purpose to that. It creates a better unity and deeper unity because you are relating to somebody not on their bodily aspect, which is finite. You are relating to them on in the aspect of Atma, which is infinite. And believe me, for the viewers, I'll say don't use soul or don't use the word spirit. Both those two words have no relation with Atma. Atma is a much deeper word. So I will call it a Atma, which is means the soul or the spirit. So Atma is a much unifying factor. But there is uh, a factor called Samsiddhi Haritoshanam. Everything is being done for the pleasure of Hari. Now that's what is being makes it as a unifying factor. Otherwise, you know, in Hindi they call it man to pagal hai. Mind is always crazy. If it is not controlled, that's when. Otherwise, it is always when it is controlled, it is a best friend. It is not mad. So what do you have to add as a closing statement?
Okay. You said about unity, and that's such a wonderful thing that you pointed out. Uh, this infinite game, it makes you generous, it makes you kind, and it tells you one more thing. This infinite cycle of life and death, it tells you that in my next birth, I might be, I need not be always a human. I can be an animal also. And then in this birth, I will ensure that I'm even kind to animals, not just to humans, not just to people of my race or my community, but I will be kind to all the humans and animals, and going ahead to all the plants and trees and forests and water bodies and everything. So it's
So for the viewers, I'll summarize. Sanatan Dharma is infinite and it's part of the other side of the spectrum, whereas all other Abrahamic religions are on the one side, which is part of the finite game. And therefore, Sanatan Dharma gives you a long term unity, peace, strength, and also helps you attain the higher destination. And all the finite Abrahamic religions, they actually keep you there or probably take you down. The philosophy of karma plays an important role, even though infinite game is your game. Like I always say, everyone has to fly their own plane. There are no group planes, but at the same time, you have help available. Like the favorable winds, there's a comparison. Favorable winds are the winds of the Vedas, and the favorable calm water is the strength of your mind, and the boat is your own body, yourself. You're on that mind. So if you have a favorable wind and a calm water, it'll go a long way. But you need to have a direction. If you do not have a direction, you cannot even go from one city to another. But in finite game, you need to know your direction. Am I right, Deepaliji?
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Thank you and namaskar, and keep looking and go to the YouTube and do subscribe and comment and let us know your feedback to bring you another aspect. But it was a wonderful thought of Deepali ji to analyze Sanatana Dharma versus the rest on the basis of games theory. Thank you.
Namaste.